It's been 1 year since Donald Trump became the first former president in U.S. history to be convicted of a felony. A jury of 12 New Yorkers convicted Trump for falsifying business records as part of an alleged hush money scheme to influence the 2016 election. Several months later, he won the 2024 election, as we all know, and made history as the first convicted felon elected to the Oval Office. And now he's taking steps to protect other allies convicted of their own white-collar crimes. This past week, Trump sent out a blitz of pardons and commutations, including to those who have expressed political support or echoed the president in claiming that they, too, had been unfairly targeted. Michael Cohen is back with us now. So, Michael, you pled guilty to a charge related to your campaign finance violations that you say were at Trump's behest. Here's what you told our colleague, Chris Hayes, back in January about asking for a pardon from Biden. Let's take a listen.
My hope is that Joe Biden offers and presents me with the same pardon that he did for his own son. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Biden obviously did not offer you a pardon. If Trump were to have a change of heart, would you accept a pardon from him?
You know, selfishly, I would, simply because it would make my life a little easier, going back into real estate, dealing with banks and so on. But it's not going to change my life. My more concern, and coming out on Monday in The Hill, there's an op-ed on exactly this, myself with Jesse Jackson Jr., on making certain statements in regard to what we believe took place with this Biden administration. I don't discount what Trump said about the group of individuals that were around him, protecting him. I don't believe that he even saw my application. I had 7 well-known individuals who wrote letters of support, 2 members of Congress, 2 historical individuals, 2 of the most senior constitutional law professors, and an ambassador ethics czar. All wrote letters of support. I didn't even get a response. So I, yes, would like to have received from Joe Biden the same type of a document that they gave to Joe Biden's son, Hunter, and the rest of the Biden family. Yeah, and I also am concerned about the 70 million Americans, 70 million that are basically scarlet lettered for the rest of their life as felon. Well, what if your sentence, like mine, was 36 months? I did my time. I paid all the restitution even before sentencing. I owe no money. It was nonviolent. Why should I be a felon for life? That's not the way the system should work.
Would you ask for a pardon from Trump?
I don't know. You have his phone number? I'll give him a call.
No, I mean,
I don't think the old cell number that I have still works.
No, but you talk a lot about like people going to kiss the ring, and he has that power over people, and so he's able to exploit that power to his advantage, whether it be an individual who wants to get his life back on track, or whether it is somebody, a billionaire who wants to get pardoned. So I think Trump uses his leverage. Would you go to him, or would you message him and say to him in one way or the other, I would like a pardon?
Not just for me only. I don't want it as an individual. I want it on behalf of the 70 million Americans and their families that are all afflicted by the fact that they have felony convictions. They can't get housing. They can't get bank accounts. You can't get credit cards and so on. So I have, again, working with Jesse Jackson Jr., we've been working on a policy that we believe would be like from the hand of God, which is what the president's power that's granted to him in the Constitution.
So when you look at the list of people, though, who have received pardons and commutations in recent days and weeks, what do you make of the pattern that's emerging here, though?
Some of them are really bad individuals. Others are also caught up in white-collar, tax issues. And, yeah, I agree with the tax issues, the nonviolent, but there are several who, let's just say, stole over $1 billion, paid back $100 million, and now received a pardon. Many people would turn and say, yeah, it doesn't sound like the worst idea, right?
And what happened back in the first term to the goal of using pardons in large part for a form of criminal justice reform? I mean, he was meeting with Van Jones and others, and, it was in part, a way for him to actually reach out to Black and Latino voters. Like, that does not seem to be his focus this time around.
Well, that's why when Eamon asked me if I would accept the pardon under the circumstance that he invoked the policy that we have written, which again would be like the hand of God. And it would be bigger even than the Emancipation Proclamation in that fact that numbers-wise, it would affect 70 million Americans. That's a nice swath of this country.
I do want to clarify that Trump has not only reserved his largesse and mercy for white-collar criminals, he was also asked about pardoning the people involved, for example, in the 2020 kidnapping plot against Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I want to play what he said and how Gretchen Whitmer responded.
I'm going to look at it. I will take a look at it. It's been brought to my attention. I did watch the trial. It looked to me like somewhat of a railroad job. I'll be honest with you. It looked to me like some people said some stupid things. You know, they were drinking, and I think they said stupid things.
Very disappointed that they're even considering it, frankly. You know, when the president was shot at in Pennsylvania, I was one of the first people on either side of the aisle to condemn it. We have to condemn political violence, no matter where it comes from, no matter who it's aimed at.
What message do you think this sends to Trump supporters?
It's a terrible message. It's a terrible message to America. You know, it's hard to get into the mind of MAGA. I don't even want to try to go there. It's a terrible message to send to America that you can actually plot to take out a governor, take out a politician, to take out anybody. And the president of the United States is contemplating on issuing pardons. The same thing should be as insulting as those people who he pardoned for January 6th. No longer calling them insurrectionists. Now they're to be referred to only as defendants.
Let me ask you really quickly before we go, and we're almost out of time, because I did ask you about the pardon, but I want to ask you the other side of it. Are you afraid that you might be targeted? Donald Trump has made clear he wants to go after his enemies. You've got Kash Patel, Don Bongino, both who have attacked you in the past for going after Donald Trump. They are now in very powerful positions. Are you afraid they may target you?
No, I don't think about it anymore. You know, after you do 51 days of solitary confinement, you become numb to all of this. You know, they want to play that game.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'll come back onto your show. We'll talk about it.
Anytime.
We'll have you back.
You have a standing
Michael
invite.
Cohen, thank you
Good
so
to
much
see you,
for
Michael.
joining us.
Thanks.
See you all as well. Congrats on the show.
Thank you.